Welcome to the Darkstream. VoxDay, voxday.blogspot.com. Welcome to the reprehensibles, to the unauthorized, to the VFM, to the Dread Ilk, and to the Bear. Now, what's interesting here is that it looks like we are already dropping some frames, but it doesn't look like it. They haven't updated our account yet, so we're still waiting. Let me make a couple of announcements here before we dive into it. We had a discussion on the chat, and it was very clear that most of the people would like me to shut down the chat or severely restrict it somehow. Most people feel, and I tend to agree, that as the popularity of the stream has increased, the quality of the chat has gone down considerably, and it's gotten distracting to the point that it's really gotten distracting to the point that I'm distracted and people are enjoying the streams less. So for now, I'm experimenting. What I've done is I've slowed down the speed at which people can post chats. You can post a chat once every 5 minutes, and so that's interesting. I don't believe there's a possibility that someone knows my IP address and I'm being doxxed. We've looked into it. It looks actually like it might be a browser-based attack. So we'll have to look into that. One thing that we've noticed is if you use a different browser, it might help. Like Firefox appears to be the worst. So if you stay away from Firefox and Chrome, that might help. So. And yes, I am aware that the trolls are coming from an anti-Owen group. That's fine, but we're going to take care of it. It's not an issue. It's not a problem. We're just going to take this one step at a time and take care of it. So. I don't know exactly how we're going to handle it. We're going to try a number of different things, and we're going to see what works. I'm not afraid to try 5 or 6 different things. We do this stream every day, and so we can take the time to experiment. We can take the time to see what works. See what doesn't work, see what we like, see what other people don't like. So we're going to be, I was hoping to do the first live stream on Unauthorized tonight. The good news is that it's possible to dual stream on Unauthorized and on YouTube, so we can keep the super chats on YouTube, and there's even this super chat alert. Although I don't understand why this. Let me know if that. Let me know if you're seeing that widget will automatically connect thing. I don't know why it's showing up, but anyhow, we'll figure it out. But it's going to be. It's going to be fine. We are always under attack for one reason or another. There's going to be issues, and we just accept that and move. Take care of it and move on and wait till the next one. And so I'm not concerned about it. I'm not worried about it. I am going to increasingly adopt. I'm going to wait until the end to address the super chats, and then I'm going to address them all then. So if you want to get your super chats in, get them in, but we're not going to break up the flow of the conversation. And Roy Bear doesn't seem to understand. We're not having a conversation, Roy Bear. That's the whole point. And I don't want to have a conversation with individuals. I want people to be able to ask questions, and I want to be able to address them. I do not want to hear follow-on questions. I do not want to hear subsequent things. I mean, for example, in email, one certain way to make sure that you never get a response from me again is I get these emails from people saying, "Oh, I understand you're very busy and this and that and the other thing, but I have an important question." Okay, fine. If I have the time, I'll answer it. And it's always a huge mistake when they respond with, "Oh, he responded to me. I'll ask more questions." No, you won't. At least you won't get any answers. So anyhow, it's just amusing how a lot of subscribers, a lot of YouTube subscribers, a lot of people who are just tuning in seem to be under the mistaken impression that I answer to them in any way, shape, or form. I don't. I don't need to do this. I started doing this because my readers asked me to. And it's been okay. But, the more that I'm not going to quit just because, there's lots of gammas out there. I mean, I literally wrote the book on it. It's not a surprise to me, but it's just not, I think it's important to keep those famous words of George Michael in mind. You don't belong to me. I don't belong to you. We're both here voluntarily. So let's talk about a Game of Thrones. And this is your one and only spoiler warning. We're going to talk about the penultimate episode, the one that just filmed, and we'll have a look. Now, it wasn't quite as disastrous as the attack on Winterfell. That's about the best thing you can say about it. The Battle of Winterfell and the Battle of the Bastards actually insulted the viewer's intelligence. They were an offense to anyone who has read even a modicum of military history. They were an offense to anyone who knows anything about the art of war in the Middle Ages. There's a Charles Oman reference for those of you who recognize it. But this time, the problems were more related to the combination of fake drama and inconsistency. The inconsistency was the most striking because, if you recall, the one dragon got speared pretty badly by the scorpions the first time around. And the Rogan, or whatever, the Drogon, the big black dragon that Dany rides, he nearly got taken out as well, right? Well, the entire fleet is still there. There's actually more scorpions because they've got scorpions all along the wall. But somehow, the black dragon this time is able to completely wipe all of them out. And it looked like they only fired like one or two scorpions from the ships at him. How is this possible? They were literally waiting for him. And then nobody bothers firing. Nobody bothers loosing. Now, you can say, oh, well, the first time the dragons were surprised, it was an ambush and so forth, but the dragons were approaching from the same kind of distance as before. And so either the two dragons should have completely destroyed the Iron Fleet, or the Iron Fleet that was waiting for the dragon in front of King's Landing should have been able to take out the solo dragon. You know, these are the kind of inconsistencies that actually tend to throw the viewer out of the TV show or the movies, because it just doesn't make sense. And what it tells you is that the producers or directors, whoever's responsible, is more interested in pushing the plot forward than they are in being concerned about whether it makes any sense or not. Varys's betrayal was strange. You know, Varys was not afraid to strike out and arrange to have people killed before. If he was genuinely concerned about Daenerys Targaryen being mad, being insane, don't you think he would have arranged to poison her or somehow deal with her as soon as he realized that Jon Snow wasn't going to step forward on his own? Varys is an incredibly ruthless man. He's not Littlefinger, but he is genuinely dedicated to the throne as an idea and to the people of King's Landing and the country of and Westeros in particular. So it's totally inconsistent that he's going to be sitting there writing letters to let everybody know that Jon Snow is the true king, knowing that Dany is apparently quite willing to burn every man, woman, and child in King's Landing to death and do nothing about it. How does that make any sense at all? Why would he let the situation get to that point? You know, I don't buy it. You know, it was a good scene and all. Those are good actors. It was very dramatic. Tyrion telling on him also makes a degree of sense, because Tyrion does have faith in Daenerys, and he's optimistic that somehow this can be stopped. But I also don't think that Missandra was her slave and then companion, but it wasn't like Missandra was her lover. Why would she be? I mean, what sort of queen, and even worse, what sort of military leader is Grey Worm that they completely lose control over an eminently predictable execution by the queen? They're going to take it out on all the innocent people that the queen is terrorizing? Again, it doesn't make any sense. And that's what I mean by fake drama. What they're trying to do is they're trying to create pathos. They're trying to help you understand the character's emotions and manipulate your own emotions that way. But it's fake, because the emotions that the characters are acting, the emotions that the actors are portraying, isn't consistent with either the characters or the situation. And that's what I thought was so ridiculous, and yet utterly predictable once they executed Missandei. You know, you could see that they were setting the stage for this outburst of rage and so forth. And then the way that they launched it for no good reason. They're just sitting there. The soldiers have surrendered. The town is ringing the bell. The city is ringing the bell. The city has surrendered. And so then you're just going to launch an attack on the innocent civilians. Now, it's quite common for soldiers to lose control and be very undisciplined when they are sacking a city. That's why sacks were considered horrific. But that only happened, for the most part, that was almost entirely limited to when a city had been besieged for a long time, and sieges tended to be really hard on soldiers because they tended to get sick a lot, and they also tended to feel very helpless. They would often be getting killed or by artillery or bows, and were totally unable to strike back. And plus, they had the whole emotional excitement, the adrenaline being elevated considerably by either the escalade or by storming the breach. These were extremely hazardous actions. In fact, during the Napoleonic era, the term for the first group that would attack and storm the breach was the forlorn hope, because it was so common for everybody in that first group to be killed by the defenders. In fact, whoever led a forlorn hope was automatically promoted to an officer if he survived it. So the level of anger and emotions being created by the siege conditions is what often led the towns to be gelded warriors, the Unsullied. It's not like the Unsullied were going to completely lose control and start raping for obvious reasons. And the other thing that was really ridiculous was, why on earth were the soldiers, Daenerys' soldiers, still going deeper into the city when the dragon starts burning everything? I said to Space Bunny, if I was Jon Snow, and I'm already a little bit concerned about Dany's mental state, as soon as she starts attacking the city despite it having surrendered, I'm getting my guys out of there immediately. Because who knows what she's going to turn on next. And again, we see too that Jon Snow had the ability to end all this. It's offensively insulting to the viewer when the obvious solution to the whole thing was for the two of them to get married. Then they're both king and queen. Everything's fine. Yes, they're a little bit more closely related than the Christian church permitted. But there's no bar on that, especially because the Targaryens regularly married within the family. So there's no problem at all. And that's why I found I wouldn't say that it was relentlessly stupid in the way that Avengers Endgame was. But I would say that it really felt like you had producers who were deeply committed to the visual spectacle and didn't really care about the storyline or the characters very much. And, frankly, I find that a bit disrespectful to... I don't think that there was a single drops in on him and Cersei. Was it nice that they had the chance to die together, yes, but when they do and the two Cleganes do, it just gets tedious. And why on earth was Euron, what's his name, Euron Greyjoy? What on earth was he doing alone? I mean, yes, his ships got burned, but he should have been accompanied by at least hundreds of other Iron Islanders, all of whom can swim very well. So, it's just it was just one long, relentless insult to the intelligence, and I just found it very very annoying and disappointing. But the primary thought that struck me was very much the thought that struck me when I finished reading A Dance with Dragons. And that's when I thought, you know what? I can do this better. And that's when I started writing A Throne of Bones. And so I'm looking forward to some of the announcements we're going to have next week. And I think that you will too. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and answer some of the super chats here. Last night, right at the end, Virgil Hilt said, "Late. I'm working as hard as I can." Good for you, Virgil. Don't worry about it. You can play it back anytime. James M says, there exists OBS, the open source live streaming software. I have it, actually. I've used it. In fact, I used to use the Slobs version for this Darkstream for some time. He says, I think we could use it to implement super chat features and several payment sources. How can I make suggestions without super chatting them? I have a blog. I have email. Plenty of ways. But I don't think we're going to use OBS. I prefer XSplit, and I think that there's a way we can do this. I don't know what's up with that super chat display thing, and also it didn't seem to work. So if you find yourself being drawn into temptation and evil behaviors, that's bad. Otherwise, I don't think it's necessarily an issue. Virgil Hiltz says, you being distracted is my only concern. Well, I think we avoided it tonight. I think it'll be fine. Justin Carpenter said, I lost a lot of respect for you when you peddled a subpar product so Owen can get to freeload as a wannabe farmer. I farm for a living. He's a joke. Well, you're also going to lose your ability to comment on this channel because I don't want you as a subscriber. I don't want you as a viewer. The Unauthorized is not a subpar product, and Owen is not freeloading, nor is he a wannabe farmer. You're a liar. And I don't care whether you respect me or not, because I don't want anything to do with liars. Man Bear Pig says, any thoughts regarding Roosh V? His streams are awesome, and he seems to be aligned with you and Owen. Unauthorized TV material? Possibly, but I don't think he needs it. Roosh has his own thing going. We know each other. If you read one of his books, you'll see that we've been in touch. I think he's a good guy. I think he's always been a very interesting individual, and I'm very fascinated with the path that he's on as a philosophical seeker. Frank Five throws in $1. Thank you. As does Cameo Bear. Thank you. Cool Ranch Bear says, does Unauthorized with the tech guys and making it very clear how we'd like it to work. It's going to take some time. It's going to take months, but eventually we'll get there. Christopher G says, how many editors are at Castalia Press? It's actually called Castalia House. And how hands-on are you with choosing what fiction and non-fiction gets published? Well, there's one lead editor, that's me, and I make all the decisions. So that's pretty clear. G says, do you think the Holy Lance found by Peter Bartholomew was a fake? I would assume so, but I know literally nothing about it. I've never heard about it. And so that's just my opinion. John Doe said, did you see the leaks? They've been correct so far. Yes, and yes. I assume they were genuine. Missing Link said, Vox, you are Q-Baron. Vox is Mountain who will betray you. Or Quiburn. No, I'm not Quiburn. And Owen talks way too much to be the Mountain. I think it's interesting that these weird little gammas are so obsessed with the idea that Owen is going to betray me. But how would that work? You know, it's ridiculous. So anyhow, Jesse's experiment. This is funny. Foxy, I know you said in your blog that you realize you're as you do. There's no need for you to say anything about it. You know, there's no question about it. Gee, I just answered your question. Let's see. Do you think the Holy Lance found by Peter Bartholomew is a fake? I don't know. I don't know anything about it, so I can't possibly say. It's really interesting how desperate people are to try to shut down these things. I don't really understand the point, but you know, they really don't seem to understand that that I've been blogging for 16 years and that we've had people try to do the same thing there. No, I'm not live on Unauthorized yet. We're getting there later. So let's see here. I'm going to go through here and I'm going to go through here and nuke a few of these folks. Let's see. John Scott says, no, the slow chat backfired. People are responding to troll comments from like 2 to 3 minutes ago. I think you just made it worse, Fox. Not really. You know, it's worked quite well because it makes it very easy to spot them. So let's see here. All right. So we got most of them taken care of. Let's see. All right, so we've taken care of all those. And where's Jon Snow on the social-sexual hierarchy? Jon Snow is pretty obviously a Bravo. You know, he is a leader of men, but he doesn't want to lead men. He wants to be given a direction and vision by someone else. And so, um, what's left for John to do in the last episode, one would assume, is killing Danny. That would appear to be how they have it set up. And so, um, we'll have to see. Uh, we'll have to see how it goes, but um, it would appear that the whole thing is being set up for Jon Snow to take out Danny. It might also involve him sacrificing his own life because, of course, they've set that up with a lot of these mutual deaths. Jaime and Cersei, the two Cleganes. That seems to be one of their go-tos. And one thing that you realize is that when you are a writer, you have different archetypes that you tend to plot archetypes that you tend to gravitate towards, and that appears to be one that the directors or the lead writers are inclined to. G says, do you believe in the Trinity or is God all one? I don't know. I consider myself to be a follower of the Nicene Creed as opposed to the Niceno-Constantinian Creed. What is this? Eric Nimmer. So you lied to people about money about unauthorized? What are you talking about? I don't actually care. You're just banned. Vox, have you read The King Killer Chronicles by Patrick Rothfuss? I tried to 3 times because it was so popular. I felt that I should, but it turned out to be the worst gamma wish fulfillment that I've ever read. Totally unreadable. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. Do the happy birthday thing at this point, but trying to make any sense of it at this point is kind of a fool's game. Any recommendations for good non-subversive fantasy books after I read A Throne of Bones? Look up John Wright. John C. Wright's Swan Knight's Son. There's 6 books in the series. They're quite good. I find it amusing that people are actually trying to... Some of these idiot gammas are actually trying to troll me about my games. My best-selling game did 6 million units. So just keep that in mind. You know, I've talked to some of the top game developers, top game designers, and they've asked me to work with them. So given some of the industry people that have always shown me an amount of respect, why would you think I give even a quantum of a damn about anything that you would think on the matter? It's amusing. When is the next stream for Mere Christianity? As soon as the unauthorized stuff as soon as I can confirm that it's up. I don't want to discuss Mere Christianity when we're having all these problems. You said last week you read the spoilers like me. Now you are acting like you know you are predicting John murders Danny. I didn't read that one. I don't know what happens in the last episode. I read about... Actually, I didn't read what was going to happen in this episode either. I read about the stuff that was related to... if I recall correctly, it was mostly related to the Battle of Winterfell. But no, I didn't read the entire thread. I wasn't interested and I didn't want to know, to be honest. Um, I mean, the thing, try to keep in mind, I write epic fantasy. You may not realize it, but I am generally considered to be one of the best authors of epic fantasy out there. So why would you think that I don't know what the obvious thing to do would be? You know, the more obvious thing to do, what they should have done, was they should have brought John and Danny together and had a nice happy ending with a wedding. That would be a interesting counterpoint to the disaster of the Red Wedding, which is sort of the most famous thing about A Game of Thrones. But because George Martin is a twisted, hateful little gamma, and because the show is influenced by him and affected by him, that is a sort of ending that could never happen. Even though it would be the emotionally satisfying way for it to happen. So instead we're, going to end with the same sort of pointless nihilism nonsense that has been the chief signature of the book. Oh, actually, Justin Carpenter, you're also the one who's getting banned. I forgot. Bye, Justin. What would you change in the Lord of Rings film adaptations if you had complete control? I would bring back the music, and I would get rid of all of the stupid dwarf jokes, the modern language, address the whole situation with Faramir. I think that Faramir was one of my favorite characters from the novels. In fact, he was probably my favorite character from the novels. And I hated what they did to him in the movies. So, how many books will there be in Arts of Dark and Light? There will be 5 total, not counting Summa Helvetica. No, I knew the happy birthday thing was a trap. I wasn't going to nuke the guy originally because I wasn't totally sure, but now that you confirm that, I will nuke him as well. Sir Hamster says, chat limiter encourages regulars to stay on topic, and that's the idea. Roy Bear says, this chat is too cerebral, and the time I have to take to react to the conversation gives me too much time alone. I want to cry. Fair enough. Mike Concho himself says, okay, well, we got a gamma here. LOL. You're considered one of the greatest fantasy writers, huh? Who says that about themselves? I don't say that about myself. There's hundreds of people on Amazon who say it. Try reading the reviews for A Throne of Bones, for A Sea of Skulls. The general consensus seems to be that as a epic fantasy writer, my books slot in above George Martin's and below Tolkien's. I would say that's a fair assessment. There's even some people who claim very, very erroneously, in my opinion, that the books are actually better than Lord of the Rings. I think that's flat out wrong. Stephen Erickson is good. I would put David Eddings' Belgariad above myself. I would put Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time well below it. I would also put the Terry Brooks Shannara stuff well below it. Steven Erikson, I find it hard to even express an opinion. I think that his stuff is more original, and might be considered better in a number of ways, but it's so fundamentally confusing and all over the place that I think that most people would vastly prefer Arts of Dark and Light. You know, I'm not ashamed or afraid to state what are the facts about the books. You know, it's like I said, go read the reviews on Amazon. There's hundreds of them. One thing that you also should keep in mind is that writing epic fantasy is really hard. Very, very few published novelists can do it. They try, but it's very, very difficult, and the more that you write, the harder it gets, the more complicated it gets. That's one reason why people like Patrick Rothfuss haven't produced a book. There's some good stuff, but it's it's got some good elements. I read Polish. I read it in English, and I didn't think much of it. Tobias said, I just started to get into A Throne of Bones, and I was actually shocked to read the arena scene with the women against the goblin. And you subsequently referred to them as murderers. Good stuff. Yeah, I mean, that's actually what a lot of the gladiators were. People don't realize that. Most gladiator battles were not fought to the death, and those that were typically between condemned prisoners. LJ III thinks that the Belgariad has too much egalitarian nonsense. Yeah, there's a bit of that, but it's still enjoyable. Sinedra is a great character. It ticks all the boxes. I think his stuff went downhill after that. The second one, I can't remember the name of it. The one that dealing with the dark prophecy, that was weirdly imitative of the first series. I don't even understand what the point of writing it was. I mean, it seemed like everything followed exactly the same path. I did not enjoy that one as much, and then I tried reading some of the subsequent series, and they just weren't very good. Barrett Bear says, I'm 3 hours in to A Throne of Bones. Just got through the arena scene. Amazing book. So he enjoyed it too. Unofficial Bear said, when the stream started, I was worried about the slow chat being too long, but I think it has helped immensely. Well played, Vox. Well, I am a respected game designer, so. Let's see. Vox, could you please estimate the IQ of the various main Game of Thrones characters? So many low IQ Gamma Trolls tonight. Absolutely brilliant analysis so far, but I must say Throne of Bones is far superior to Game of Thrones. See, there you go. Why don't you read it for yourself? Forget it's me. Forget that you don't like me. Just read it for itself. That's what you should always do. There's plenty of authors that I don't like. I think China Mieville is a lunatic communist. But I also think that he is one of the 3 greatest living science fiction writers. And I will happily read anything that he publishes. He's a great writer. He's much better than I am. No, he's better than I am. But that doesn't mean I like him. That doesn't mean I want him setting our economic policy. He's just a really good science fiction writer. Anyhow, I'm not going to estimate the IQ of the various main Game of Thrones characters here because I would have to think about it. But Tyrion is obviously, as he's supposed to be, more intelligent than everyone else because, of course, he is the George Martin stand-in. And I'd be very surprised if he got killed because authors would very seldom finish them off. Spiderbip wisely says, never look too much into the personal lives of artists you love. That's very true. El Caballo says, Vox, how do you avoid hating mankind for acting like cattle? Many don't educate themselves, and others with just a bit of information and a lot of arrogance go to war and don't realize what they're doing. Look, if you keep in mind the fact that, if you take IQ seriously, and I think you can put too much weight on it, but ever since I was a little kid, I have been to normal people the way that normal people are to severely retarded people. So I had to either reject them all as lesser beings and idiots and so forth, or I needed to figure out a way to live with them. And the thing is that there's so much more to life and to humanity than intelligence. And some smart people never get over the fact that they happen to be a bit smarter than other people. But you have to, because intelligence is just one of 1,000 human attributes, and it's not the most important one. It's a useful one. It can be a useful one, but there are many people who are my moral superiors, who are, much more attractive than I am, who are much kinder than I am, who are wiser than I am. I just learned to look at the various different attributes, and there's plenty of very smart people that I don't respect at all. Some of them are just horrible people. I don't like horrible people, no matter how smart they are. I mean, one of the reasons why I so despise gammas is it's not because, they're so stupid. They're actually a little bit smarter than the average person, but they're just nasty and destructive. The world would be much better off without all of them. I mean, how often can you actually say that about a group of people? But you can definitely say that about gammas. They're just awful people. And, you can feel sorry for them. Most of them didn't intentionally choose to become what they've become. But, there's a reason why they got bullied. They deserve it, most of them, because they're just horrible people. So, you don't hate everybody just because they don't see things the way that you do, or because they can't understand the things that you understand. It's very frustrating, yes. I mean, there's a reason why, I'm the one who came up with the acronym and mantra MPAI. Most people are idiots. But I don't use that, believe it or not, I don't use that in a contemptuous manner. I use that in a manner to prevent me from having unrealistic expectations about people on a regular basis. It's basically my personal version of what a lot of Europeans who live in Africa say: Africa wins again. Vox, when was the last time you played Dungeons and Dragons? Probably 8th grade. I didn't like Dungeons and Dragons very much. I much preferred reading. I think the first 1 or 2 are okay. I don't think you need to bother finishing the series. Capiche says, Vox is to normal people what normal people are to retards. Humble. That's just a fact. Look up what IQ is considered retarded. Compare it to normal people. Add on the difference, and you're around my IQ. That's just the way it is. I don't do false modesty. False modesty is not humility. Any update on crypto fashion? Yes, I got an email from him 2 days ago. So he's obviously a lot better. I don't know if he's fully recovered yet, but he's definitely back in action. Yeah, I don't know what that glare is on the. It doesn't show up when I'm not zoomed in, but look, I'm just doing the J.J. Abrams thing. Okay, I'm looking to film the next Star Trek. Elet Sputnik says, it was a major breakthrough for me to realize that I probably deserved it, allowed me to let go of so much bitterness. Well, the problem is that gamma is a spiral, a downward spiral. People can't, they're social losers. They're low on the social totem pole for any of many different reasons. They start behaving badly. People don't like them. They become bitter. They erect a delusion bubble around themselves. And then they just end up, turning into these nasty little trolls who, instead of building something, instead of doing anything constructive, devote their entire lives to trying to tear things down for no reason. So it's just one of those things that you have to deal with. So my IQ is 150. And yes, I know many people who are smarter than I am. In fact, with my 150 IQ, I was the third smartest of the 4 people living in my house after college. Steve K says, your advice on graduating Gamma really helped me. I used the advice to become a Delta in my martial arts club, and after a few years have been promoted to a Bravo position by the Alpha. That's great. I love to hear stuff like that. So thank you. You are very welcome. Stay on the path. Speak the truth. Stacy throws in $2. Thank you, Stacy. Sergei says, how do I join the Barcelona Boomers Club? Well, you probably need to find a time machine and get yourself born earlier. Then move to Barcelona. This is a good point. The brightest minds of humanity's entire history were still wrong about the vast majority of everything. You can't expect the average to do better than that. Perfection isn't for this life. Yeah, I mean, Mark Testa said, is the Wheel of Time subversive or was it just boring? Wheel of Time is subversive in a way because it's very feminist. And then you can tell the point at which he got divorced because then it just gets tediously bitter about women. It's terrible. It's so not good. How do you estimate IQ? You compare their behavior to the behavior of those who have those sorts of IQs. Let's see. Have you ever read any of the Spellmonger series? That doesn't sound familiar. Frozen Asian Classic said, big fan of Psychosonic. My favorite song is Techno Jihad. Takes me back to watching a good action movie and feeling hyped after leaving the theater. The funny thing is I just found out that one of my old bandmates actually has tracks in Captain Marvel and in Alita Battle Angel. So that's kind of cool. When will the rest of the CMK, is there a way to get A Throne of Bones as an audiobook? It's a 31-hour, 22-minute audiobook. You can buy it for $29.99 at Arkhaven Comics. I would recommend buying it there because it's higher quality. You can also buy it at Audible if you like. Vox, did you ever go through a period of using numbing agents to cope? No. No, I've never had that issue. Um, Dreddy Bear says, Vox, don't you have a split in IQ due to something with spatial? That would drive your overall IQ down, so your intelligence would, in other capacities, would be higher than 150. Yeah, that's actually an observation that some of my smarter friends have made, and actually a number of people with very high intelligence have made. They're always surprised that at 150 that my IQ is as low as it is, at which point my wife makes a comment about my total inability to pack things into a car, and laughs. So I'm literally retarded when it comes to spatial relations. It's appalling. You know, it's like being completely colorblind. You just can't see it. You just can't figure it out. All right. I was in a band called Psychosonic. You can look it up. Anyhow, well, that's good for tonight. I think it worked a little better. I mean, we still had some drop frames. We had a total of 480 drop frames, which is, I think is a lot less than before. But the slowing down the comments seemed to help quite a bit, and so I'm glad about that. We'll look forward to seeing you next time. This is the Darkstream. I'm Vox Day.